Good morning, everyone. Jim Clarke here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share a contemplative focus with you. And that focus for today is the more aware you become, the more awareness you want to experience. The direct experience of what is blissful, elevating, fulfilling, and it's from this that we desire to be more aware. We want to create more awareness. We want to experience more awareness. We simply desire to be more than we have ever been in our human existence. We are inspired to simply be. So that contemplation is, of course, all about the awakening experience and the process that occurs following that experience. So in my own experience, once you have an awakening experience, once you're suddenly and unexpectedly opened up to the truth of who you are, in any degree whatsoever, there is an explosion of blissful being, and that level of joy is beyond anything that I could ever describe. I know that I was so energized and so blissful when I had my awakening moment that my body was so full of energy it simply danced for a while. And it was celebrating that moment because it was the fulfillment that you keep looking for outside yourself but never find. It's that kind of fulfillment that tells you who you are, and it defies everything that you used to believe about who you are not. So it overwhelms the ego, and it wipes away all the identifications for a moment that you ever had about who you are and what life is. And from that point on, you want that moment to last. You never want it to go away. But it does go away, or it seemingly goes away. So I know that you want to keep that moment, so that is inspiration to keep on going. And this is where, in my case, I started to meditate. I started to explore the holistic lifestyle and how to get that back to where I had been in that moment of exuberant bliss. So this is what we do, and this is the driving force. And before you have that experience, you may be curious, you may explore some, but once you have had that experience and you know what it feels like, you know what your being is in that state, there's nothing else that you want, because that is it. And in that exploration, we seek out whatever we seek. We seek a teacher, we seek some kind of direction. We may want to try to do it ourselves. I know I started that way. And I meditated for many, many years with different systems and so forth, and had some very expansive experiences in that process, but nothing could bring me back to the level of joy and bliss that I experienced suddenly without having any clue that it was going to happen. So seemingly it came from outside myself, but the truth is it was simply the moment that was appropriate for me to have, because I have journeyed this journey through many, many lifetimes. And this is a human evolution. This is what we're really doing here. We're evolving through the experience of being human, which of course has occurred in a context where experience can happen. And that is why it is dualistic. It is polarized. And in the beginning of our experience as a human being, of course, we acquire an identity with our ego, and we seek to find fulfillment through that ego. And in that exploration, we're constantly focused on the external world in relation to our internal world. This objective world is where we're trying to find fulfillment. The subjective world is, we're aware of it to some extent, but we really don't explore it very much. So this is what most people go through in their lives, and they don't understand why they're not happy, or why their happiness is limited, why it cannot remain constant. Of course, the reason for that is because they're imbalanced to the negative polarity, and they simply don't understand they don't understand the mechanics. So they think they're just an isolated human being trying to be happy like everybody else, which they are, and yet they have no insight into what the human experience really is. It's really consciousness having a human experience, which means you're consciousness. And if you're already consciousness, there's nothing more that you really need to get other than awareness, the awareness of who you are and what life really is. And that process varies from person to person. It varies according to your cellular history. If you journeyed this journey many times before, you may have a sudden awakening experience, and that might be it. You might be there. You might be fully there, and no more process is necessary. That's the ideal. But for most of us, at least for me, I know it's been many, many years of exploration and a continued evolution for me in that process. Because when I first started to meditate, I had no knowledge of what that meant. I did not understand the processes that occur as a result of meditation, and my interpretation of that process was often wrong. I thought something was wrong and that my meditation wasn't working, when in truth, when I was cathartic and I was clearing all kinds of data within me, it was a sign that my meditation was working perfectly. So eventually, after many, many years of exploration on my own, I finally signed up for Synchronicity, and I was able to speak to people and get some guidance and understanding of the process that I was experiencing. And that made a huge difference in me, because then I actually knew what was going on, so I wasn't so reactive whenever I was going through a clearing process. If I was a bit cathartic and it was uncomfortable for me, I understood that that was just what was happening, that the beliefs that I was holding on to were incongruent with the experience that I was having when I meditated, and so they were either being cleared or re-scripted. So there was some of each going on as I would utilize some of the tools that we get, like focusing on positive affirmations in that process, and being very wakeful to what kind of data was coming up, and exploring that in detail to make sure that I was fully re-scripting and or eliminating that data as having anything to do with reality. And I continue that kind of practice today, because it seems that there's hardly ever an end to the data that we have accumulated over lifetimes of the human experience. The first beginnings of human experience for somebody, for consciousness, of course, is where there is literally no awareness, no truthful awareness. It is in the pretense of being what it is not. And that is its primary intention, to begin this human journey, the play of consciousness. And so in the earlier portions of the human experience within the dance of consciousness, the game of consciousness, you're not aware, and you're not ready to be aware, and there's nothing that's going to make you aware, because you're fulfilling the primary intention in consciousness to fully be itself. And that includes what it is not. And what that really means is that you live life after life after life in all ways. You can be man one time, a woman next time. You can be this race once and that race the next. But in all those experiences, you're just accumulating false data. You're believing that you're an ego. You're believing that your life is temporary and that there's suffering and that everything is hard and difficult and that you're fearful. Fear-based experience is the bottom line for experience until you gain awareness of who you truly are, and that's because you're not balanced. You don't focus on the internal, the subjective world of yourself with an intention to explore and question life, which is what is necessary for you to wake up fully. An awakening experience begins that process, but it's just the beginning of that process. Because you still have an ego, and you still have your identification with it, some of which has been blown away by your awakening experience, but not all of it. There's a completion that has to happen before that can be. And that completion comes from a devotion to your process of waking up fully to who you are and what life is, truthfully. And that requires a lifestyle. A dedicated lifestyle where you meditate every day, where you try to maximize your balance physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. So you're really immersed in a lifestyle after you have an awakening experience that was not even comprehensible to you prior to that experience, because you had no idea of what the truth was until something pokes you and says, hey, this is what you are, boom. And gives you a moment, at any rate, where you're filled with bliss in the truth of who you are. And there's a story that this brings to mind, an old story that originated from a disciple in India way, way back, where he begged his teacher to give him the full experience of who he was. He wanted to be enlightened completely in a moment. And so after he bothered his teacher long enough, his teacher started to give him the empowerment that he was asking for. But before long, that disciple was begging him to stop because there was too much, too fast. It's not an instant shift going from being unaware and fully identified with your ego, and then suddenly you're fully identified with your truth as consciousness, you as consciousness. There is a process that has to happen because the human body, which is the vehicle for our human experience, cannot integrate and handle the kind of energy that begins to unfold within you, within your body, as you begin to become more and more awake and more expanded in your awareness. And that expansion is accommodating greater and greater energies. And that's why you can't just jump right into it. Unless, of course, you were born so close to enlightenment that you only needed to be poked and there you are, which is rare. So essentially, that's what I wanted to share with you today. It's a process that I've been through since, for at least 40 years and going on more than that. So it's not something instant by any means, but it's something that I would never give up, and I never regret, because I still am more blissful today, moment to moment, than I've ever been before. And that is exactly what I wanted to achieve from the moment that I had that initial blissful experience where my body was dancing and I was full of joy. And I experience it differently today, but I do experience it, and I experience it with consistency. So what more could I possibly ask than to live a life where I am creating that for myself and hopefully helping other people to do that for themselves. So that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. I'll be back again next Monday morning with another contemplative focus to share with you. Thank you for watching.